Ladies, self-first behavior in dating is magnetic AF, okay? But actually, what is taught to us as normal in early dating and relationship simply doesn't actually work for real life. Here are 11 powerful self-first behavior changes that you can do in early dating to set a healthy relationship dynamic from the very beginning without playing games or being manipulative, so that you don't end up with that familiar feeling of losing yourself in relationship, which this video series is all about. Because most of you don't lose yourselves in one dramatic moment. It actually happens slowly through small decisions that feel harmless at the time until you're emotionally exhausted and wondering how you even ended up here again. And by the end of this video, you'll see exactly how these small innocent behaviors are actually the ones shaping the entire relationship dynamic, and how those behaviors extrapolate into a relationship that completely drains you, makes you feel unseen, and eventually ends when you just can't do it anymore. Ever been there? So we're going to get into it straight away. Self-first behavior, number one, not committing to exclusivity with any one man too early on. I know you hate this one, okay? But this is one of the biggest early turning points in dating, and most of you do it too soon. You give exclusivity to the man too soon, and it drains you later down the line. Hear me out. So you've been dating your new guy for a couple of months, and it's kind of getting to the stage where dating another man might feel a little bit weird or disloyal even. And I want you to pay close attention to that word, as you'll find out later on. And that feeling of disloyalty can feel very real in your body, even though nothing has actually been defined yet. And if that resonates, don't forget to circle back to video 1, where we talk about this concept of loyalty and overgiving in early dating and relationship, and how it often gets misused. You see, most women give exclusivity too soon, either because they like the man, they don't have the emotional bandwidth to date other men, which, by the way, is a sign that you're giving too much already, or they are more fixated on the goal of long-term relationship or marriage than actually assessing whether the man she is dating is truly lifetime compatible. And all of these feelings are totally understandable, because let's face it, the modern dating landscape requires a lot of effort if you want a quality partnership. But if you're actually dating for lifetime partnerships, then that emotional exclusivity and that physical exclusivity is a massive energetic and mental investment on your part. So surely there should be some talk of the future and tangible commitments before you give all of that in the first place. But also, not just talk, you should have the data that the man you're in relationship with has the qualities that you're looking for. Because if he doesn't, and this is the part to get super honest with yourself, then why would you put yourself in a situation of exclusivity where you can't date other men in the first place? And if you're curious about the timeline on exclusivity, put it this way: there is no way you can know whether the man you are dating is fully compatible with you in the first few months. And by the way, this is just the most obvious overinvestment that women are programmed to do in dating, but there are so many more ways that we overgive in dating accidentally. But first, let me explain the deeper reason why you shouldn't be exclusive with a man before it feels like a surefire thing. Not overgiving through premature exclusivity sends a subconscious signal to the man of your internal security and emotional stability. The dialogue in your brain sounds a little bit like this: I have my best interests at heart, and I'm focused on finding a future long-term partner. And it gives off the energy that you know your value, and you're not afraid to shop around for the best partner for you. And realistically, in the modern dating world, right, because I'm there, I've been there. So if you're not being inundated with a crazy number of men, which is normal, so let's just normalize that for a second, your energy is going to sound a little bit like this, and it's going to give off the same energy, which is, I'm okay with being single. until the right man comes along. But I mean truly okay with it, not just saying it, right? There's so much dialogue out there, like I'm scrolling Instagram, decenter men, decenter men. But how many of these women who are talking about decentering men have done it from a place of love for themselves versus hatred for men? That's a question I propose to you, okay? Because be honest, what other choice is there really anyway? You can't pick a man for your lifetime partner if he's not really a match. So what's the point of lowering your standards anyway? A relationship won't last if there isn't truly compatibility. And this is the exact energy that gets a man to step up to the plate, to put his best possible self forward for you. And it psychologically sets you apart from, unfortunately, many women who might still be acting out of the pressure or excessive desire to find a life partner, because you're not making him the center of your world just like that. Do you see how it's different? Here's the best thing about this behavior change. If he doesn't really view you as life partner compatible, he will lose interest and drop you pretty quick, which is great, because I really hear you when you say that you don't want to waste your time dating men who aren't serious about finding a life partner. So let the men who lack intention or compatibility drop you completely. Goodbye. So you can actually see how dating multiple men early on is actually not game playing at all, but it's actually being authentic. It's you genuinely looking for the best possible lifetime partner for you. You're putting your best interests first. And why wouldn't you do that? You do that in literally every other area of your life. Yes, it can feel uncomfortable at first, not because it's wrong, but because you've been taught early emotional loyalty equals virtue. And that's not the right mindset in early dating with someone you're just getting to know. Okay, behavior 2. Allowing attraction to unfold over time without worrying too much early on if he's truly the one you choose yet, or deciding that he's your person by date 3. Rushing this stage is one of the fastest ways emotional attachment forms before compatibility is even clear. But also, how connections are lost that could have built naturally over time if they weren't so rushed and pressured. And yes, you guessed it, in this context, attachment is just a fancy word for inappropriate emotional investment. So this self-first behavior allows time for his true character to actually reveal itself over time. To name a few, how is he underdressed? Does his moods change frequently? Is he organized with his life admin? Does his generosity last beyond 3 days? Do your lifestyle preferences match? This is where your patience with the process, not him, the dating process, becomes self-protection. Okay, so we're moving on to behavior 3, but stay until the end to really understand the deeper reason why all of these behaviors work to act as what I like to call the great filter, because it basically filters out men who aren't dating or considering you specifically for lifetime partnership. So you can preserve your time and energy for men who absolutely will view you as the life partner material that you truly are, right? They're going to be viewing you for your greatest and highest value because they value you. Okay, behavior 3, not self-editing your personality to stay desirable. Ladies, this one is huge, and one that I'm pretty sure we've all done at some point, because let's face it, we were all taught this as women, right? Often, this doesn't actually feel like self-betrayal. It just feels like being easy to get along with. But men who are dating for a life partner are actually looking for a woman who can stand in her own energy and doesn't just go with his flow. Men always say, let me tell you, I have so many male friends who are the eligible bachelors, and I also coach men, and they always say to me, Lena, I just want a woman who is a bit of a challenge. But that's not what they mean. What they actually mean is that they're looking for an equal, a woman who knows herself, feels good in herself, and feels stable enough and emotionally regulated enough to not feel the need to hide or minimize herself to stay agreeable. And she'll set a boundary or state a preference if she needs to. Have you ever found the irony where men might tell you what they're looking for in a woman, and then when they actually pick someone, they've picked someone completely different? Because what men say and what men actually want there is a discrepancy between it because sometimes they're not very good with their words. Love them, but they're not always great with actually communicating what it is that they want, because they don't know what it is to be a woman, right? They're only seeing how you emanate your femininity. They don't really know what the experience of being a woman is. So that's how a woman can tell you when men say, oh, I want a woman that's a challenge. They basically mean that he will throw all of his superficial values, he really will, ladies, his looks preference, his body type preference, like all of it, he will throw it in the bin, okay? If your energy is something that your energy is just emanating that confidence and that self-regulation where he's like, what the hell? Where has this woman been hiding her entire life? And men have a tendency to know that the woman he's dating is the one pretty quick, okay? And it's not because of the way she looks or because she matches his checklist. His checklist is usually pretty superficial because his little golden heart just really craves a woman who he can just adore, right? Who he can just serve and protect. And he needs you to show up fully as you in order for him to take his role in the relationship, right? Energy and self-confidence, but even deeper than that, self-worth. Like, you genuinely know how valuable you are. And it pains me that so very few women get here in this lifetime, okay? So be one of the women who really, really gets their value, not just saying surface level things, but genuinely from the inside. Okay, moving on. Behavior 4, not becoming his emotional support system before he's invested, but also even after he's invested. This one especially trips up capable, empathetic women because helping just feels so good and natural. Yes, have you guessed it? I'm one of these women. Remember though, okay, that he is an adult man, and just how it's your job to emotionally regulate yourself, it's his job to emotionally regulate himself. It's not your job to be his therapist or what it really comes across as. To him, his mum, right? That role's been taken. It's fine to be a supportive person, but set boundaries around what feels good around this. Otherwise, it will drain you quicker than your iPhone loses battery. Okay, here's another one for the empaths, the coaches, and the therapists in dating, okay? Behavior 5, not fast tracking intimacy through vulnerability. Depth builds connection, but only when trust builds alongside it. It's really, really easy to do this one accidentally, but not everyone has earned the key to your heart. Give the connection space to let him earn the privilege to understand your deeper parts. Notice how these behaviors all stop you from making him the emotional center too quickly, right? Okay, self-first behavior number 5 is very important. Not turning dating into a valuation of yourself instead of him. This shift alone, this is huge, in particular for the women who have a tendency to attract narcissistic partners or narcissistic traits in partners or anything along a low empathy line, okay? This shift alone can change the entire dating dynamic setup from the very beginning, because that's what this is all about. Circle back to video 1 when we talked about why losing yourself in relationship happens to begin with. And then these are the behaviors to stop that happening in the early dating dynamic. In video 3, we're going to talk about where this actually comes from. Ladies, we always get deep with my content, so don't forget to subscribe so you get every single video in this series. Okay, you're not seeking his validation, okay? You're good with yourself. So you can feel free to stay in something that I like to call I dialogue. This is one of the things I teach my women first in my coaching containers, right? And this is what basically I dialogue is. It sounds a little bit like, what do I think of him? How do I feel around him? Did I have a good time on that date? Not, did he seem like he was really into me? Ladies, please flip the script and stay centered in your own feelings and perceptions instead of worrying about what he thinks. It is not your fault that you do this, okay? I am not having a go at you. I'm not blaming you in the slightest. Society quite literally teaches women to always think of others first. And that is why I'm telling you, do whatever it takes to keep your feelings and keep your emotional experience first. We're not talking about relationship. That's a whole other thing when trust has been earned. We're talking today about early dating and how not to lose yourself in the early dating process. And I dialogue is honestly fundamental. And when I got this in my very own dating journey, my entire experience changed, the energy changed. At first, I was almost like faking it until I make it. But eventually, as my internal work started to catch up with my external work, and this is something we go through, right? I started to actually embody this dialogue so fully that I literally have an entire section of voice notes in my phone with men just saying, Lena, how are you unlike every other woman I've ever dated? And my clients say the same thing, ladies. And I'm giving it to you here in this video. Switch it to iDialogue, but make sure it's coming from the inside. Okay, behavior number 6. I'm going off on a lot of side quests today. Not running into fantasy and mentally planning a future with him after one strong connection. Instead, set a time limit for that guilty pleasure. Look, we've all done it, ladies, okay? Set a time limit for your guilty pleasure of fantasizing about your wedding day, okay? Do it consciously. Imagine the dress. Imagine what your babies are going to look like. Imagine who you're going to invite, who you're not going to invite. And then just feel free to move back into being energetically neutral and observant in those first few months of dating. Do you know, the thing about fantasy is it comes from a specific place. We're not going to get into that today, but it comes from a specific place. And I genuinely believe that suppressing it and telling yourself you're wrong or bad for doing it isn't going to work. So give it to yourself. Let yourself dream. Let yourself use fantasization as a fantasy method, but then drop it, okay? Like ground yourself and be like, okay, I gave that to myself for 10 whole minutes. And then I'm now coming back into the real world where I'm data collecting with this one man who I really, really like right now, but might not like next week. Fantasy is one of the biggest ways emotional attachment forms before evidence does. That's why I'm saying that to you, right? And you're looking for a real life partnership. This time next year, you're going to be in your real life partnership, not an imaginary one, right? Put it that way. Okay. Self-first behavior, number 7. By the way, ladies, can you see how powerful, like if you actually did these in dating, can you see how powerful that these behaviors are and how it changes the dynamic that underlies, is the undercurrent of all your connections in dating? Let me know in the comments, okay, how you're finding this. Okay, self-first behavior, number 7. Not narrating him as different from the other men until he's shown consistency over time. Remember, you are data collecting in the early dating process to see who this man really is. I'll also add this one in, okay? Not being a black and white thinker. Oh, I used to be such a black and white thinker. He's amazing, he's amazing. He's rubbish. How could he have done this, right? Because I was really uncomfortable with the gray areas. Once I learned how to gray area think, and black and white thinking comes from trauma, right? So when you learn how to actually think in the gray areas and really understand the different parts of yourself and how they integrate, that is a massive shift in dating. If you find yourself swinging from, wow, I really like this guy, he could have potential, to then feeling really disappointed when that first flag drops, that first red flag drops, and you know, we've all been there. Oh my God, I've been there. When you know, you can't ignore that red flag because what underlies it is something so toxic, and we've all been there, right? So when you find yourself swinging from that kind of almost pedestaling to complete disappointment, this is your sign that you need a slower and more measured and regulated approach to dating, because no one enjoys feeling disappointed in dating and feeling sort of over-attached and then almost like avoidant later on. It's an emotional mind catastrophe, and you don't need that. You don't need to get yourself emotionally dysregulated in such early days and such early stages of dating. Okay, self-first behavior, number 8. Not over texting to maintain momentum. If he's not showing some initiation, step back and let the silence happen. You don't necessarily want him to chase you, but in the beginning, men have a tendency, if there's something that they find is really attractive and shiny and they're curious about it, they can't help but lean in. So let him, okay? Then if he does take a little bit of space, he's probably just checking in with himself. Am I really interested or not? Men have a tendency, again, I know way too much about men. Men have a tendency to see something and they're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I want her. And it doesn't necessarily, it's not just the anxiously attached men. It's not just the anxiously attached men, okay? But then a lot of them will pull back. That pullback isn't necessarily something off an attachment pattern. It's not necessarily something dysregulated. It can just be him checking in with himself. Like, how do I really feel? It could just be him slowing down a bit and saying to himself, oh, you know what? I came on really strong. I'm exhausted. I'm going to come in with a more regulated approach, right? When you feel that silence drop, do not fill it in. Wait. Get the data. Babe, I'm telling you, been here many times. Get the data on what that silence is. If you don't want to play games, then his interest should end up being obvious, right? Don't participate and chase so that you're playing his game. Play your game. And by game, because I know you guys get really triggered by that word, you're like, Lena, I don't want to gameplay in dating. I'm not saying play games. I'm saying be psychologically smart. Disengage, okay? It's not healthy when someone's taking space. It's not healthy to then go into chasing behavior. You can step forward in time if you need clarity, and there's a way and there's an energy around doing that, right? But we're not begging for anything. You're dating multiple men. Let's go back to step one. So when a man takes space, let him disengage, don't play his game. And if he comes back, you can be like, hey, like, I'm curious, you've kind of been off grid for a couple of weeks, so I'm wondering if something happened. How's everything going? And you'll be able to be emotionally regulated around it because you haven't put all of your eggs, quite literally, for those of you who want babies, you haven't put all of your eggs in one basket. So dating multiple men when it feels right, and there's a way to do it. You don't have to date 1,000. We're going to talk about this so much when we talk about Sandra in the next video. And we explain the deeper reason why she felt so much guilt around. Sandra is my client, by the way. And she's given me permission to share her story because she's one of these golden-hearted women who really felt extreme guilt and disloyalty. Remember I told you to pay attention to that word around dating multiple men. And I kind of, as a coach, I often let people do what they need to do. And then when it goes wrong, we get those aha moments and then we restructure it, right? So I'm going to share that full story with you in the next video. So don't forget to check that one out. So silence can actually feel threatening, but it reveals interest faster than effort does, okay? Collect the data. Ladies, self-first behavior in dating is magnetic AF, okay? But actually, what is taught to us as normal in early dating and relationship simply doesn't actually work for real life, for the modern dating landscape. Dating and relationship, oh my God, my parents' advice from the 40s India. What is that advice, okay? They're like, go on a date with 3 men. Love those guys. Go on a date with 3 men, then pick one, Lena. How hard is it? You know, can you see, like, our modern, of course you can, you're in it. The modern dating landscape is something very, very different. And honestly, it has never been more important as a woman to protect your best interests, to protect your heart and to protect your body. So I hope you can really understand where these behaviors are coming from. They're coming from experience in my own dating and relationship world. And also it's coming from watching my clients make the same mistakes as me and actually thinking, oh my God, no, let's change this because I really don't want you guys to go through what I had to go through and what some of my clients had to go through before they figured this out, because it's damaging, right? It's damaging. It's not healthy to be going through this. You should have never had to go through all of this to find a relationship in the first place. But those of you who are really doing the work, you know that this is almost something like a self-development quest, or if you're spiritual, as I am, a spiritual quest into becoming your higher self. And when you embrace the journey like that, it really shifts things in a different way that gets you what you truly, what your heart, what your golden heart truly deserves. Okay, self-first behavior number 9, keeping personal routines non-negotiable. You're not cancelling your yoga sessions, girl, or your PT sessions. You're still doing the things that revitalize you and make you fill up your cup, make you feel good about yourself, right? Meeting up with friends, having a balanced social life. You are integrating a new man into your life. You're not recreating a whole new life around him. Why would you do that? Your life should feel the same size and potentially in time a little bit bigger with him, right? But definitely not smaller. Self-first behavior number 10, not seeking reassurance about his interest in you. And this sometimes, ladies, it comes in the disguise of initiating the where is this going conversation too soon, or the how do you feel about our connection conversation too soon, right? Let him be the one to initiate all of these milestones. And there is a deeper psychological reason for that, right? Which I'm not going to go into right now because that's a whole other topic, but I will do a video on that soon. So don't forget to subscribe if you're really into learning the whys and the psychology around these magnetic behaviors in dating. And this one links directly to the deeper psychological block you might be experiencing in dating that we're going to talk about in the next video, and Sandra explains in her own experience. Okay, and number 11, letting confusion be information instead of trying to decode him. I know, girl, you have figured out your attachment type, you figured out his attachment type, you've already discussed it with all of your friends, and you've gone onto YouTube and you've hyperanalyzed it, you've come back with a algorithm that explains why he takes 2 days to reply back, okay? That's kind of what happens to us. We learn about our attachment patterns and then we basically use it to psychoanalyze everybody else, okay? I don't care if you know his attachment pattern. It is not your job to fix him or educate him, okay? If your attachment pattern isn't working with his, because remember, it's not just about healing ourselves to perfection, because attachment, I've said this so many times, attachment is the way you connect with someone. So healing attachment ultimately requires taking the risk with someone who you think is showing signs of being healthy and healing yourself within connection, right? So it's not your job to fix him, but sometimes what can create a certain healthy amount of chemistry. You see, I'm not one of those coaches who's like, find a stable man. You'll never pick the stable man. We're not picking the stable man. But what we are doing is we're picking a man who has had life experience just like you. He's done a little bit of work on himself, and your shadow parts are learning to dance together, right? That's so important. It's not just your easy good parts that are like perfect and aligned and it's really easy for me to do ABC. It's actually the things you struggle with. Do your struggles and his struggles, and this includes attachment patterns, do they do the dance or do they not? Okay, so it's partially that as well, right? So it's not your job to fix him. And certainly, ladies, if he is not taking accountability for his behavior in the first place, if he's not able to communicate around an attachment pattern mismatch, do not get me into the side quest story about how I once dated a man and then he dumped me because he was like, yeah, I had a meeting with my friends and they taught me about attachment patterns and they were like, you're really anxious. And I was thinking, I already know, this is before I was a coach. I was like, I already know about attachment patterns and you're avoidant, okay? He dumped me for being anxious but was unable to see what he was contributing to that dynamic. And I was like, great. I want to tell you so badly that I was like, yeah, goodbye. Like, you're so right. I was angry. Why can he not take accountability for his part of the relationship, okay? Let me know if you've been there. But the thing is, it's not your job to fix him, okay? So consider it might be time to say goodbye if he can't take accountability for his behavior, and save yourself months of future drama and stress. First-hand experience, seen it in my clients also, right? Confusion in dating can offer trigger analysis, but clarity can actually come from taking a huge step back. So take that step back. And what you've probably gathered by this point is that losing yourself in dating usually happens through these types of micro self-betrayals that often happen in early dating and relationship, right? It's not one big decision that you made. It's not one big mistake. It's small moments, just small moments where potential starts to matter more than the reality of your actual internal stability. Did I miss any behaviors where you feel like you might be overgiving? Because can you see how a lot of these behaviors, if you don't do them from centering yourself, they're actually overgiving, right? And so can you, did I miss any behaviors where you're like, actually, you know what? I do this one thing and it's a total overgive in dating. Let me know in the comments. Okay, that was a lot. You see, when you change these behaviors, it energetically reads as, my internal state matters more than any man's potential to be my life partner. And that is what reads as magnetic security, okay? The woman that every man wants. That's the way she feels about herself, and it's showing in the energy she's giving out. And this is the part most dating advice never actually clarifies, right? Why does this energy actually change how men respond? Because it signals self-security, and we all love being around happy, self-secure humans, okay? Okay, but let's be honest for a second. When I was going through these behaviors, did any of them actually truly come as a massive surprise? Not really, right? Like maybe you were like, oh, the way she's phrased that is really interesting. I didn't think about it that way. It's informative, but they all pretty much make sense to you, right? They're logical. So if you understand why these self-first energy preservation behaviors, right? Because that's what we're doing. Remember, taking it back, we're not losing ourselves in relationships. We're preserving our mental, our physical, and our emotional energy in dating until you find someone who is truly showing signs of compatibility and certain conversations and timelines have been discussed. There's a whole thing to it, okay? But they all pretty much make sense to you, right? They're logical. So if you understand why these self-first energy preservation behaviors make sense and are important, then why do they seem so hard to actually do in dating and relationship in real life? Why do you feel that inner resistance and sometimes guilt to implement these behaviors? Watch the next video to better understand the deeper reason that secretly blocks you from self-prioritizing and protecting your best interests in dating.